Hello there and welcome to Dishonored 2, Arcane's latest stealth action masterpiece, sequel to the first Dishonored, and spiritual successor of sorts to the famed Thief franchise, much more so than the fourth game that was released a few years ago. Now, Arcane is shaping up to be one of my favorite developers of all time. The games they make are just so high quality and so varied as well. You have stealth action with Dishonored, weird CRPG / Ultima Underworld setup with Arx Fatalis, and then basically System Shock 3 with the recent Prey. But of all of their games, I feel that this one in particular is the most fun just to play, just the sheer visceral feel of the gameplay. And I hope I can show that off to good effect, so let's just get right into things here with the new game. In the second of 3 campaign slots, I'll explain this game's odd save system later. Upon starting a new game, you can choose from 4 difficulty modes. As you go down, the enemies you'll fight will become wittier, sharper, more perceptive as you stealth your way through the environments, and when they engage you in combat, much more lethal and dangerous. And you also get this cool zooming out effect, reminiscent of 90s FPS games with different icons for different difficulty modes. And then, finally, at the bottom, we have the custom difficulty option. This wasn't here at launch, it was added in a later patch, but it allows you to customize the difficulty to your liking. So you can make it so that the stealth is easy but the combat is hard, or vice versa, or everything hard. For us though, we'll just go with very hard, and we will not be playing the tutorial, it's kind of boring. A long day in Dunwall. Today marks the anniversary of the death of Empress Jessamine Kaldwin, assassinated 15 years ago. Visitors from across the Empire of the Isles have journeyed to Dunwall Tower for the occasion.
Why do we celebrate the anniversary of an assassination? 15 years ago, in the middle of a plague that nearly destroyed Dunwall, a paid killer assaulted the palace where I was born and stabbed my mother in the heart. In the aftermath, the men who sent the assassin tried to use me as a pawn in a game of power. They would have succeeded, but my father, Corvo Atano, hunted them down and cut their conspiracy to pieces. All these years later, am I the ruler my mother wanted me to be? Now, we face a new crisis. A monster the papers are calling the Crown Killer has been picking off my enemies and dressing it up like my father and I are responsible. I don't know whether to get on a ship and sail to the opposite side of the world, or to have everyone around me executed.
Watch your step, Majesty.
I'm not looking forward to all the ceremony today.
Your signet ring. There. You're ready.
Thank you, Alexei. Open the doors.
All hail Her Imperial Majesty, Emily Kaldwin.
Loyal subjects, we're going through a difficult time, but today we honor my mother, the late Jessamine Kaldwin. May her memory survive through the ages.
Emily.
You look tired, Father.
Every year, I think the anniversary of Jessamine's death will be easier, but it never is.
I wish Mother was still the Empress. I don't think I'm very good at this.
You're still learning. Don't worry about the rabble-rousers, and we'll catch the Crown Killer, eventually.
People are saying it's you. That these assassinations are a misguided effort to protect me.
No. Someone's trying to make us look guilty by targeting your enemies.
I wish I could just run away from all this.
Sometimes you do. You think I don't know about your nights out on the rooftops? Courage. The ceremony will be over soon.
Royal Protector and Father. I should have passed a law against that combination of titles years ago.
Your Majesty, before we begin the day's observances, we have an unexpected visitor, the Duke of Serkonos.
Ramsay says the Duke is bringing special gifts.
That's intriguing.
His Grace Luca Abel, Duke of Serkonos!
Mechanical soldiers? Amazing.
What is this, Ramsay? I didn't authorize those things.
Your Imperial Majesty and Royal Protector Corvo Atano, a native of our homeland. Serkonos offers condolences on this sorrowful day, and gifts to remind you of our nation, the rising star on the southern horizon.
We thank you, Your Grace.
Save your thanks. For now, I give you the greatest gift of all, family. I present the lost sister of Jessamine Caldwin, your rightful Empress, Delilah Caldwin.
Impossible.
My mother had a sister?
My dearest niece, hello.
It's not true.
My father was Emperor Euhorn Jacob Caldwin, and Jessamine was my younger sister. At the time of her death, I wasn't ready to make myself known to you, and I was forced to leave Dunwall. But now I'm home.
If you really are my mother's sister, you're welcome to stay as long as you like.
Little sparrow, blackened by bad memories, I'm here to relieve you of your crown. My father's promise, whispered in secret so many years ago, is now fulfilled.
Watch your tongue. Emily Caldwin is the daughter of Empress Jessamine Caldwin.
Royal Protector. How naive to think you could get away with these murders. Living in my palace has protected you, but that's over. Hear me, all of you. Your rightful Empress has returned.
All hail the Empress Delilah, first of her name. Arrest Emily Caldwin and her father for the Crown Killer murder.
What?
Sword can't still my heart.
And now the game gives us a choice. Play as Emily Caldwin, ruler of the Empire, or her father, Corvo Atano, figure of infamy from the times of the Rat Plague, but it should be pretty obvious whose story this is. We're playing as Emily.
I will cast you in cold marble. Sweet girl, over time you'll come to love me. Perhaps someday you'll see me as the mother you lost. But until then, you'll be kept out of trouble.
I'll lock Lady Emily in her chambers, and I'll bring her to Cauldron Prison until her trial. My father lost it all when I was a boy, so now I wear this uniform, and I send 20-year-olds out to patrol the rose gardens instead of drinking with the men from the shooting club.
Captain Ramsay, I heard shouting. Lady Emily, what happened?
It'll be all Captain Mayhew.
No!
So that's the Royal Protector's fancy weapon. What kind of sword folds in half? There's a legend in the Tower Guard about the Empress's last resort, a safe room inside your chambers holding enough gold to buy a good-sized island. They say that this ring is one of the only 2 keys to exist.
What happened? Alexei. The throne room. Father! Nothing I can do alone. I need to get out of here.
I question Ramsey's decision to leave behind the cool, flippy sword.
Sir, how long is it going to take, Captain Ramsey?
Hold your horses.
These bastards are working with Ramsey and the Duke of Serkonos.
The man's moving up in the world. He's old blood, one of the good families. And now that he's helped the rightful Empress take the throne, the Ramseys are going to be back in fashion in Dunwall. You'd be smart to remember that.
In aid of stealth, we can look through keyholes, a useful tool for peeping on unaware observers. Another effective means of gathering information is picking up notes scattered throughout the environment. They come in the form of instructions or notes like this, as well as proper books, of which we read excerpts. They're expansive enough that, for the most part, I'm not going to bother singling them out.
They used to hide frogs in this old grandfather clock to drive the housekeepers mad. I thought life was complicated back then. Should I just spin it and pick a place to hide for a while? I need time to think.
I'll transcribe them in the thread for you to read at your leisure, and you can also pause the video if you want to read them now. But if there's any important information to be found in them, I'll highlight that at the time. All of the messages here are just about crown business that Emily was conducting. Good background detail about the rather humdrumness of her life as an empress, but otherwise not terribly interesting.
How many times have I looked at that skyline? It feels like everything just changed.
If you look real closely, you can actually see figures moving down there, like tiny little ants.
Delilah is some sort of witch. How is this possible?
I think you just answered your own question
Lady
there.
Emily, you're all right. I was worried.
Oh hey, she's still alive. Not for long though.
Where's the Royal Protector?
There's a coup underway. My father is... he's imprisoned, for lack of a better word.
You've got to get out of the tower. Through your safe room. There was a captain earlier today, down at the docks, looking for the Royal Protector. Find her. Get out of Dunwall.
Alexei, I'm sorry. Goodbye.
On the off chance that you're wondering, no, she doesn't come back, much to my own chagrin. Now this note here is rather important. The captain of some ship wanted to meet with Emily's father, Corvo Attano. Now she may be our only ally, so we should try and seek her out, but first we must find the means of escape. Now in the course of this playthrough as Emily, I'm not saying I will never use lethal force, nor am I saying will I always be stealthy like a ghost, but I will always be attempting to take down the enemies non-lethally and without being detected, ideally aiming for the no hostiles killed and ghost achievements. But again, don't expect me to do that. In fact, even in this mission here, I fail that. I have done that before in my own personal playthrough, but it kind of required a lot of save scumming, so I didn't think that would be the best fit here. And yes, those methods I just used there do count as non-lethal. That's actually one of the nice things about this game as a sequel to the first Dishonored. Previously, lethal-only takedown techniques, such as drop assassinations, now have non-lethal variants, as we saw there.
Emily, I know times are hard. You're the ruler of 4 nations, and I won't pretend to understand the pressure you're under. Only you,
No time for that now.
you, could know what that's like. Whoever Whoever's killing off your enemies is doing so for calculated effect, undermining us. I do know what it's like to be blamed for murders you didn't commit, but trust me, we'll find this crown killer, and they'll pay. Tomorrow is the anniversary of her death. A sad day for sure. But I want you to remember all that's happened over the last 15 years. You've held on to the throne, and you've done what you thought was right for the people of the Empire. You drained the flooded district, kept the gangs in check, and yesterday we launched a magnificent ship bearing Jessamine's name. You're becoming the sovereign your mother wanted you to be, and I'm proud of you.
Just doing a little customary teabagging there. So yeah, audio logs. This game has them. It doesn't exactly utilize them all that well. This was an issue in the first Dishonored as well, where to actually listen to the information you would have to stick around where it was located. There's no way to take them on the go, and that was a technological advance that I really hope this game would have. Technological advancement from an in-universe standpoint. Like maybe Emily would be able to carry around a portable audiograph player, but alas, that never ends up being the case. In addition to books and notes, we also come across newspapers, another new addition to this game. They end up telling you about the state of the world, and in a rather entertaining form.
With the throne room blocked off, we should have the time we need. Just stay here and stall anyone who comes by. I'll be back when I've searched the royal chambers, assuming I don't accidentally lock myself in this damn safe room.
We'll cover for you if anyone from the Duke's party returns. This is exciting. Everything's changing.
Yes, the natural order is reasserting itself. The Ramseys once hosted the King and Queen of Morley, did you know that? I spent my childhood playing with the Buntings and the Boyles, the cream of society.
And very soon you'll be back at the top, Captain.
Ramsey's family fell from the aristocracy, and apparently the man holds a grudge. How it's my fault, that's beyond me. But one way or another, Ramsey is too dangerous to be left in play.
What are you looking at me like that for? Yes, this all counts as stealth. Hate the game, not the player now. Ramsey and his guardsmen are just really hard of hearing. Totally.
Father, I don't know how, but I'll make this right. I promise.
Yeah, no, as long as you don't take actions that count as making noise by the game, you can basically do whatever you want.
Animals. No respect.
Really, as long as you're crouched, you're basically making no effective noise. You have to be far more wary of the guard's eyesight. I swear, what with how perceptive they are, they must have some amount of eagle blood in them. Well, we'll be seeing proof of that soon enough. For now, let's deal with Captain Ramsey.
How does this lock work? Ah, clever. Maybe designed by Sokolov. Emily's ring, the seal of the Empress. All this wealth wasted on the Caldwin girl and her father, a foreigner.
I spent so many nights in here after the rat plague.
Ignored me at Butler's change of command ceremony. If she'd bothered to keep her appointments, I might have finally restored the family to its proper station. My idiot father notwithstanding. A tenth of this money could have saved my family, or a little piece of paper with her signature, or a word or two in the right places.
You know what's more valuable than gold, Ramsey? A nice, warm hug.
This won't leave my hand again.
Well, ring recovered, that's task 1 out of 2 done. Now to accomplish task 2 out of 2. We have to eliminate Mortimer Ramsey. If we were playing as a crueler Emily, we could just toss him out of the balcony here. It would be a fitting fate for one of his ilk. But as I said, I will always strive to be non-lethal when playing through as Emily. It just feels more fitting, you know. So instead, let's just make sure that he's safe and sound and happy in the nicest suite in Dunwall.
Anton Sokolov made this lock. Now you've got what you wanted, Ramsey. The Imperial Suite atop Dunwall Tower. Stay put until this is all set straight, Ramsey. Enjoy the rations and well water, sleeping next to a fortune.
It's certainly a contrast to the non-lethal options offered in the first Dishonored, which were often quite cruel. Honestly, most of the time, crueler than just offing the poor jerk. So Ramsey can stay here in pretty nice conditions. He'll even have the wealth that he wanted. Just won't be able to do anything with it. We kinda monkey-pawsed him here. We can read a history of Corvo Attano. Funny that we learn more about him in the opening segment of this game, playing as his daughter, than we did in the entirety of the first game, where we played as him. Although I think ultimately that's just a function of Corvo being a cipher in the first game.
Old Samuel made this. I'm glad he didn't live to see me driven out of Dunwall Tower.
Here he is a more fleshed out character.
Emily, my daughter, I know that one day you'll be grown up, and I wonder what you'll remember of these years. Will you recall your time as a child with fondness? Or were there too many caretakers, formal dinners and lessons about boring old history? Maybe the precious hours we spent together will shine brighter. Time captured now and then with your mother and with Corvo, who was always close to my heart. I hope this season of rats and plague will be nothing more than a passing shadow on your early memories. A crisis come and past, weathered by your mother and her advisors. You'll sit on the throne someday, and will do well, I hope. It's a tricky life, full of responsibility and peril. It was not your choice to be the daughter of an empress, but I believe you'll rise to the challenge. Stay good-hearted, Emily. Keep drawing and telling stories, and only share your power with those you truly trust.
If only I could talk to my mother one more time.
Probably shouldn't say that, Emily. You never know when you're gonna get monkey's paws yourself. So yeah, at least that room when we were listening to the audiograph had a lot to look at the time. Lots of cool little Easter eggs to the first game, which I enjoyed. That's gonna be our equipment for a while, but we'll take that last. Let's check out the rest of the suite here. More Dishonored 1 references, drawings Emily made in that game.
Won't help against Delilah, even if I had a way to carry it all out of here. This could be handy.
Jeez, make up your mind, Emily. Are you leaving it or taking it?
I have a feeling I'll need these.
Yeah, no badass mask for old Emily here. If you play as Corvo, that's what you get as opposed to the telescope. But both pick up that rad steampunk gun. I gotta say, the gun design in both games is one of my favorite things visually. It just looks so cool. A long day in Dunwall. Delilah and Duke Luca Abel have taken the tower. Dunwall is no longer a safe place for you. Escape the city by meeting with the boat captain down at the docks.
Until I understand this, I have to go into hiding. I should make my way to the docks.
Here we have another book which is notable for the fact that it has a note inscribed in its margins, written to Emily.
What would my old governess say? Callista would probably tell me to sit up straight and to marry Wyman. She'd ask me when the War of the Four Crowns ended. 1625.
Callista was from the first game, as were these three gentlemen. They were right pricks there, all to a one. But they're dead now, and they're making up for their annoyance by giving us a cool 200 cash for their painting. Emily possesses the magical ability to automatically convert valuables into raw currency. A truly sought-after gift in times like these. Or it's just a contrivance the game does so you don't have to actively sell the stuff you pick up.
I've got to get out of Dunwall.
Oh, this is a nice looking city.
I've got to get away. I should talk to the captain of that ship.
And once again, if we look closely, we can actually see figures moving down there. And this time, they're even interactable. Though we of course don't have the means to do so just yet.
What do I have to do to help my father? What do I have to become?
So this path down through these rooftops here is the one that the game intends you to go down, as you end up picking up tutorial pop-ups if you don't have those disabled. One here for the drop takedown technique.
Traitorous dog.
So this is the path that the game intends for you to go down on your first time through. And if watching blind playthroughs of this game is any indication, it's the one that most players take.
The city is crawling with the Duke's men.
Listen up, I have bad news. Ramsey's missing. Corporal Moore checked the royal quarters, and Emily Caldwin has apparently fled the tower. We've got to find her. That's it, you've got your orders.
The thing is, this pathway isn't exactly an easy one. Kind of a dick move that the developers pulled here. Because if you continue down, you're forced to stealth your way past these guards at eye level. And that is something that, if at all possible, you want to avoid in this game. Even if you end up playing on the default difficulty, normal, guards are still especially eagle-eyed, and if at the same level with you, can end up seeing you from remarkably far away. Much more so than you'd expect from playing other stealth games, even the first Dishonored for that matter. The guards here are just overall much more perceptive than they were in that game. And so, we're going to take the lesser trod path here. Keeping to the rooftops as much as humanly possible is generally the way to go, if you want to play stealthy. Now we have much more free reign to move about without being immediately spotted by 5 guardsmen.
Attention, Dunwall citizens. Today on this sad anniversary, we mourn the tragic slaying of our beloved Empress Jessamine. Huh? Stop!
Well, rip that guy. I love all the little extra environmental details they packed into here, to really set the setting that this is a proper coup. Oh, and this novel here is especially worth reading. It's a penny dreadful novelization of Dodd's stories, which you could play in the first game as DLC. In general, the lore books in this game are really good, really well written.
You're not fit for the watch uniform.
So, one immediate advantage of taking this pathway is you have an easy way to take out this guard, who is usually rather annoying because otherwise he'll spot you when you try and sneak along this path.
Attention Dunwall citizens. As
As of today, Delilah Caldwin is our new Empress. All hail Delilah, first of her name. Further, the former Empress, Emily Caldwin, is now wanted for treason. Any of you found harboring Emily Caldwin will be fined and arrested. People of Dunwall, stay in your homes. You're advised to stay indoors during this time of unrest.
Really, taking the path that we did just puts you at so much of an advantage compared to the default one, that I can't help but think it was specifically designed that way. You can stealth through if you take the lower path, but it's so much more difficult to do, that I can't help but feel it's designed like that to reward players who look around, pay attention, and try and find unusual methods of advancement. So here we're trying out the lean mechanics in this game, returning from the first Dishonored, with the addition of being able to lean forward as well as to the side. Unfortunately, leaning itself is much less useful. Even on normal difficulty, guards can still see you while you're leaning, whereas in the first Dishonored they cannot. But even that disadvantage can be used to your advantage by drawing out a guardsman without necessarily having him see you, and thus taking him out stealthily. Now, by default, these guards actually have an awareness meter that fills up and tells you how close you are to being spotted. I have it and a number of other HUD options disabled just because I feel they're too immersion breaking. And this is a game that really builds up the immersion well. It's just a lot more fun if you disable most of the HUD stuff. But with that guardsman there, essentially what we did was fill his first awareness meter. Thus he went to investigate to get a better look at us, but he didn't really know that we were there. When the second awareness meter is filled, this happens.
That's Emily Caldwin!
Yeah, I didn't exactly handle this well. Thankfully, one of the fantastic things about both the first game and this one is that it gives you a lot of options for dealing with enemies should you break stealth. In the first one, you were forced to resort to lethal force for the most part. There simply weren't many non-lethal combat options. But here, that's not quite the case. Every lethal takedown has a non-lethal equivalent, as I stated earlier, and there are more of both. You can now slide into enemies and then tap the takedown button or the kill button, and you end up taking them out quickly like that even if they have noticed you. See? No kills at all. And this is another improvement over the first Dishonored. You can see your stats for the mission at any time, whereas there you had to wait until completion. Made it so much more of a pain to do a ghostly or non-lethal run. Because sometimes a guard might die or spot you and you don't realize it until the end, and then you're like, well, time to do that entire mission again, unless you were really studious with your saves. Honestly, I'm not too terribly surprised that I got spotted there. Oh yeah, most of the notes in this area are just extra details about the coup that Ramsey set up. But yeah, for my money, this particular encounter here is the hardest in the game to stealth. Doubly so if you come via the lower path, because it's not only set up to be rather difficult, there are a bunch of guardsmen here and their patrol routes are set up such that they cover pretty much every angle. There's no place that's safe to be 100% of the time, which requires you to move incredibly deftly to avoid being spotted. And even worse, this is before the game introduces any of the special abilities that you'll be acquiring, and you don't even have much in the way of standard gear, so you just don't have a lot of options. Trying to have a little fun with this unconscious man. Stuck him in the fireplace. Oh, and this is another painting from the first game. Lady Boyle, I hate to watch you go, but I love to see you leave. 'Cause you give me 200 coins. And a rather familiar passcode. If you have good taste in games, I've no doubt that you'll recognize the significance of that. As to where we use this code, well, there's a safe in the room right with us. That we'll get to in a bit. Let's explore around first. Throw some dead fish around. I said throw some dead fish around, there we go. Fun times for all. Except for the fish. But he's long since stopped caring about that. And so we have to input the code individually each digit, turning the wheel once per movement. And yes, this is as annoying as it looks. But it's totally worth it as we got some sweet dosh. In reading this book here, we learn that this is the new apartment of Dr. Galvani, a name that you might recognize if you played the first game. You raided his old apartment in that one twice. I guess he moved to a new one to try and avoid having that happen again. Only to fail because he has the worst luck in the world. Well, better to be robbed than to be dead. And with this coup going on, we don't know that that hasn't happened to him. But hopefully he's alright. He seemed like a nice enough sort, from what we learned about him in the first game. Oh-ho! A guardsman who's interested in literacy. Well, even if we were going on a killing spree, we couldn't deal with this man. He'll clearly be a great asset to the world in the days to come. Which is why we're giving him a nice rest right there. Gotta make sure his brain pan survives intact after all. The whale statue that we just picked up is a slightly higher tier currency consumable. Even though it has a unique model, it's not any more important than the 50 coins it's worth.
Kiela, sorry you missed us. I'll be taking the children away from Dunwall earlier than expected. A few weeks before the upcoming anniversary of Empress Jessamine's death. Things are about to get bad, and I'm not just talking about the Crown Killer. Besides, there's profit to be made bringing new silver miners down south, so arrangements must be made. Ta for now.
I'm not sure that audiograph was especially worth listening to. Doesn't really add all that much aside from the fact that clearly this whole coup conspiracy was quite wider spread than it initially seemed. It not only involved another kingdom, nor Emily's highest guardsmen, but also just common civilians.
Listen up. For the sake of your family, turn over all information concerning Emily Caldwin and Corvo Atano, wanted for murder and treason.
Why can't I wear my regular clothes?
Emily might not have been the best Empress.
You look like you can take care of yourself.
Then again, given her childhood, that's kind of understandable.
So it's a coup. The Caldwins have finally fallen. Never thought I'd see the day. Shh, we shouldn't be talking about this.
Until later, then.
Oh, Leaning, how far you have fallen. It's worth bringing up that one of the custom difficulty options is how leaning works. You can set it so that you are completely invisible while leaning, while leaving every other option as hard as possible.
Captain Ramsey's been so industrious, but I need a ship.
So if you prefer leaning to be useful and actually worth doing, you have the option to do so. I'll probably bring up the custom difficulty options many more times in this playthrough, because it seriously is one of the best features of the game, and something more games could do to have. Being able to specifically customize the way that the game does things is pretty much the best way that you can handle difficulty. And let me remind you that this isn't just a simple first-person shooter where all you'd have to adjust would be things like damage values or health values. This is a stealth game where you have awareness, visibility, all sorts of things. And yet, Arcane still put in the effort to do this. They put in the effort and fine attention to detail that most developers just waste on higher fidelity graphics and large explosions. So he is hoping they continue to develop video games for years to come. I'm pretty much a loyal customer at this point. So I said before that you should pretty much always be walking in crouch/sneak mode, because that is the only way to eliminate noise. And right there, we just saw what happens if you walk around not crouched. And this is a bit of an issue. I have a specific way I plan to proceed through the level for the most part. Just ignore some confusion I have later when I'm kind of like just wandering around the place, not sure of where I'm supposed to go. But when I end up accidentally triggering a new patrol route for a guard, I'm kind of at a loss as to what to do. Here you see how I typically respond to that, being incredibly slow at first and just waiting to see what happens, and then immediately making my move, usually being spotted immediately afterward. If I had waited a bit longer, he probably would have wandered up upstairs, and I would have been fine. Alas, we had already ruined our ghost attempt, so it's not the worst thing in the world. And we avoided alerting any of the other guards in the area. So what these guardsmen were examining was the Crown Killer's most recent victim, Ichabod Boyle, one of the people speaking out against Emily.
Delilah and the Duke didn't hire the most refined assassin.
That may have something to do with the public's rather poor opinion of Emily. Just maybe. I will say though, this coup was pretty cleverly executed. Besieged not just literally with a force of traitorous guardsmen and robot soldiers, but also in the form of public opinion. I would be impressed if not for the fact that they just let Emily slip away like complete idiots. Come on, don't you recognize the trope that's happening here? She's gonna come back for revenge. Make sure you deal with her. Make sure you have a dead body. Yeah, as well written as the background details for this game is, the actual plot is less so. The strength of the writing is definitely in the setting building. The main plot is pretty much just there to give you an excuse to explore the setting they've crafted. At least that's my take on it. Now, having explored this building mostly fully, there's still plenty of loose coins about to pick up. I'm skipping past most of them because there is just so many littering the stage that if I spent time trying to pick up all of them, especially with the floating movement of the PS4 version of the game that I'm playing, we'd be here for another hour or so. The PS4 version has some seriously bad input lag that leads to slidiness with the movement.
Road is blocked by order of the City Watch.
Locked? What am I supposed to do now?
Not my concern, citizen. I'd advise you to return to your home.
If I can't prove that's it for my shop, the entire month will be ruined.
Trust me, you don't want to be out on the streets right now. Move along.
Speaking of attention to detail with regards to building the setting of this game, I love that they have these various interactions between the cooing guardsmen and the civilians. It makes it feel more fully fleshed out than if they had just left it at the initial coup attempt at the beginning. They're actually following through with things and making sure that Emily can't make an immediate bounce back. I also really enjoy how this game opens with this level in particular. The first game, shit goes down, you're knocked out, and you wake up months later after most of the stuff has occurred. But here you're put in right into the thick of things, and it makes for a much more exciting opening. Another feature of this game that, honestly, in my previous playthrough that I did in preparation for this LP, that I had completely forgotten about, maps. You can pick them up for most levels they're scattered about, and then you can check them out from your menu at any time. They can be somewhat useful for navigation, but in general I don't feel they're all that valuable. They're actual in-setting maps of the place, so your location isn't conveniently marked on them. They're also, as you'd expect of a street map, pretty low detail. At most, it can be useful for pinpointing locations you want to check out that maybe you pass by. For example, one that we did would be the Dunwall Courier, which is right over there on the right. Unfortunately, at the moment, we're currently besieged by a lone guardsman. Yeah, sometimes even being high up above them isn't enough to avoid their gaze. Whether or not you're noticed when spotted by a guardsman is a mix of distance both laterally and vertically, and illumination. Hiding in shadows is more effective than hiding in bright light, for example. There's even a specific option in the custom difficulty for how perceptive the guards are when you're in bright light. Now, unfortunately, to actually make it to the courier, we've been forced to proceed at street level. There's no easy way to do so up on high with our current skill set. And given how frequently we've been spotted in this brief sojourn, you can see just why I wanted to avoid street walking in that initial segment. It is just so much less effective than making house calls. I didn't start that with the intention of making a prostitution reference, but that's where I ended up. If you must blame anyone, blame my brain, not me. And as I said before, whenever I get spotted, I just freeze up like a timid rabbit, like a deer caught in headlights, before rushing forward, inevitably to be spotted. Thankfully, I was far enough away that I could make a quick exit. You'd think that he'd notice me immediately if I started running, but as long as you're far enough away, that can actually be more effective than just slowly trundling away. At the end of the day, it depends on how far away from him that you are.
It's gonna be Brian Hagfish again.
Thanks, Mr. Vagrant. I really needed to know what you were planning on eating today. Oh, and that rather smooth, totally intentional evasive maneuver we just performed is pretty much outdone by this moment of foolishness. It's especially bad because I knew that guardsman was coming. I have a pretty good mental mapping of the enemy patrol routes. It's just that I'm used to entering this building from the main entrance, where that guard is facing away from you, not the side entrance where he'll end up spotting you immediately if you don't duck out. But we took him out pretty efficiently before he could alert anyone else, so it's no biggie. Just carrying a good friend bottle of rum. You never know when he can't come in handy.
Empress Delilah Caldwin, rightful heir to the throne, has taken power in Dunwall. The usurper, Emily Atano, and the murderous royal protector have been arrested.
Get out of here.
You have until tomorrow to print it.
I never should have listened to your rubbish.
Don't make a pig's ear of this printer.
Well, if not useful, then amusing, at least.
Huh? What? I don't want to... Come closer so we can talk.
I don't want to... Come closer so we can talk. Yeah, this encounter can be a little bit glitchy.
That man, part of the Duke's coup, I'm sure of it now. And I saw him talking to Captain Ramsey of the City Watch.
You weren't the only one fooled. But I never ordered those killings.
I know that. It was irresponsible of me to print the name Crown Killer. I allowed myself to be coerced. Forgive me.
You're forgiven. I'm not sure what happens next, but protect yourself. And when the time is right, tell people the truth.
You can count on it. I won't ask you what your plans are, but for the sake of Dunwall and for the Empire itself, I hope you succeed.
This actually went pretty well, all things considered. Some of the time, after you take out that guardsman, even if you do so non-lethally, the printer will just be so afeared for his life that he'll spend the next 30 or so minutes cowering in the corner. Seriously, it can be really difficult actually getting the prompt to talk to him sometimes, to the point that a lot of the time you're better off just saving beforehand and loading if you end up encountering that little bit of trouble. Thankfully, fortune shined its bright smile upon me, so things went just fine. So, having conquered the first two segments of this level, it's split into pretty neat thirds. We now come to the third segment. Our street level stealth attempt of that latter part of the second segment didn't go so well. Nor did our similar attempt at the first, so let's try and approach this one a little bit differently, avoiding dropping down for as long as humanly possible. Fortunately here, there are actually a number of paths to do that. There's the electrified rail overhead that we could walk along, if we had 100% lightning immunity. Sadly, Emily did not pick that when creating her character. Not the smartest role player her. Fortunately, instead, we can head through this abandoned apartment. And as the music would suggest, doing so was actually a rather notable action. In fact, it is one of a number of special actions that you can perform in this mission. Special actions are, well, special actions you can perform, doing highly specific things in each mission that the game will actually note upon completion of the level. I will do my best to show them all off, as I am currently showing off those flickering shadows right there. Yeah, the game looks great on PS4, and it runs pretty well, but there is the occasional minor issue or two. Drop on the guardsman. You might have noticed that the drop takedown prompt actually showed up when we were not only far above him, but also a fair bit away laterally. The exact positioning of takedowns, both the choke ones and the drop ones, can be a bit fiddly. This can end up working in your favor, as you can end up performing them from surprisingly far away, which can be a useful tool for dropping down from high up above, since performing a drop takedown causes you to take 0 falling damage, when otherwise falling damage is pretty severe. But it can also be a huge annoyance because you'll be right up next to the enemy, you'll do the button prompt to do the takedown, and it just won't go. And then you'll get caught, and there goes your ghost attempt. That's also partly a reason why I'm avoiding lethal force on this playthrough. That way I can avoid looking like an idiot flailing my sword about. If you played the first game, you know what I'm talking about. So, while we're looking at this rather dashing guardsman here, you may have forgotten our goal for this mission was to reach the pier and abscond with a boat. A boat whose captain was seeking specifically to meet with Corvo. We are very close to the boat right now, but we're not gonna go to it just yet. The current direct path isn't exactly the best one to take. There's plenty of guardsmen patrolling the pier, they're not that incompetent. So we're gonna look for a bit of a side path. And that means doing a little bit of backtracking back towards the beginning of the third segment. Of course, because of my sheer skill, it is all for naught as I get noticed anyway. Yeah, I mentioned before I have a pretty good mental mapping of most of the guards' positions and their patrol routes, but it's not perfect. In fact, this one in particular I seem to consistently forget about whenever I'm trying to stealth through this mission. But a quick response, some Vulcan skull holds, and we're just fine.
First the shortage of whale oil, then the murders. Now what's ever going on tonight?
Careful with that sword. The Grand Guard won't like it.
It's been hard getting fighting between some of the guards earlier.
The Hatter gang. Damn them.
What's been happening? That crown killer lunatic and all? Whatever the Royals are fighting about. Can't make it easier for them. That's what I'm saying. We need a network of shops selling contraband, just like they've got down in Serconis. People are getting rich in Colero and Karnaca, even after paying the Grand Guard to look the other way.
I'd pay bribes too if it meant the roads weren't blocked off.
Pass along whatever we score, and we run security for the shopkeepers.
Right,
and we take a cut on the sales. I'm telling you, the wind is blowing in our favor for once.
Well, if we ever happen to be in Serconos, we should probably check out one of those black market shops. Sounds like it could be useful. And yes, this game teaches you that most important of lessons. That not only is curb stomping from high on up non-lethal, but it's also incredibly quiet. You can do it to your friend, your enemy, and no one will care. As we did to the Speedwagon ripoffs right here. despite the fact that they're not guardsmen per se, they are hostile to you, so you do need to take them out. And they're guarding some rather useful loot. More coins. And if you're playing more lethally, another grenade. There's only like 3 or 4 of these things in this entire first mission, and they're pretty much the only method of lethal force that you have aside from your sword and the pistol that you start with. So it's good to know their locations if you want to do things explosively, shall we say? Yeah, the first mission as a soft tutorial doesn't give you most of the stuff the game has to play around with. It limits your toolkit, forces you to get familiar with the basics, which actually works out pretty well on your first playthrough. Unfortunately, it makes future playthroughs kind of a bore. But sometimes that's just an unavoidable situation. And yeah, coming from this side path, behind that little speakeasy, is definitely an easier way to take down this Pia situation. The actual best way is to just find a quiet corner and leap into the water. If you're far enough down, the guardsmen, as eagle-eyed as they are, will not spot you. The Dunwall water is just that shitty. But since we were spotted anyway, we might as well get in close and give them some nice hugs. We gotta share the love. We're a loving Empress. And that's pretty much it for Mission 1, a long way in Dunwall.
Came here to warn the Royal Protector. Maybe too late.
We're about to meet a pretty good character.
What am I going to do? Something's going on at Dunwall Tower all across this cursed city. Where are you, Corvo Attano?
Say hi to Megan Foster.
Lady Emily, you won't get far with that face. Stamped on half the coins in the city.
There's a coup underway and I'm being blamed for the Crown Killer murders. I don't care what my face looks like.
My name's Megan Foster. I work with an old ally of yours, Anton Sokolov. We learned something scary down in the south, and I came to warn you.
I know, Anton, but Corvo's gone. The Duke of Serkonos is here with a woman named Delilah. They massacred everyone in the throne room. Then she did something I can't explain. There was nothing to do but run.
Sometimes that's all you can do. This is my ship, the Dreadful Whale. We can head out as soon as you're ready.
I need to get to Karnaca where the Crown Killer murders started. Delilah must have been down there for a while, and I've got to figure out what's going on.
You're Corvo's daughter. I'll give you that. Should we go?
Yes, I'm ready.
And that's Mission 1 complete. Overall chaos level low. No kills, but unfortunately a few detections. Not all that many though, considering just how many guardsmen there were. A decent start to things. The stats screen also shows how many collectibles we picked up, and it lists all of these special actions we performed. You can read them if you're interested. As to where the game is taking us next, well, you'll just have to tune in next time to find out.